Hi everyone, welcome to my review of John Glen's Octopussy from 1983. So yes, here we are, back once again, yes indeed, to talk about James Bond, and this time the 13th Bond film in the franchise. So yes, the second, of course, John Glen directed Bond, and very sadly, the penultimate kind of Roger Moore Bond film. So very near, sadly to me anyway, near the end of this kind of Roger Moore era or phase or kind of period, whatever you want to kind of refer to it as. And yes, his sixth Bond outing. So yes, very very interesting film. But yes, this will have spoilers, within this video here, this discussion, whatever you want to call it. And so, in that case, if you haven't seen the film, certainly watch the film first, and then kind of come back to this, or at least be warned, because there will be some plot point discussions within this kind of video. So yes, as always, with that said, here we are. Yes, as I've said, a very very interesting film, and I watched this yesterday. The plan wasn't to review this yet, because yesterday night I actually reviewed For Your Eyes Only, of course, and I did say that I kind of want to kind of space them about, or space them apart, kind of a week at a time at least, but there'll be some exceptions with that. I think this could be, for example, uploaded, kind of within a few days of my For Your Eyes Only review. But yes, I just wanted to kind of talk about this film today, since I watched it yesterday, and I just felt like it. I felt like talking about Bond a little bit kind of more frequent on this occasion. Again, I am trying to kind of space them apart, but I was in the zone, having just kind of watched this film again, and kind of hyped up a little bit, actually, would you believe, because this film is very very divisive. Octopussy, of course, is a film that many people would consider really one of, if not the kind of low point of the franchise. I've seen this a few times ranked right at the bottom, and of course everyone's rankings are unique. As we always say, it's very hard, at least, to kind of find an exact ranking, and stuff. And yes, with that said, I think Octopussy can be divisive. Any Bond film can be, and that's completely fine. But yeah, it's very interesting. This of course is known for its wacky kind of nature, and yes, some consider it, especially critics, or particularly the kinds of critics, consider this one of the low points, as I say, and one that isn't too great at all. Many would say this is a bad film, and yes, this and A View to a Kill, definitely both quite very very divisive, but in the sense as well, some people do like Octopussy and A View to a Kill, and more than like, some people love the film. So it's just very interesting, as always, to see. It can happen with any film, of course, and this film in particular happens to be quite a there's quite a strong reaction to this film, and I think as I said on my previous review of this film, it's a one that I'd seen a few times, and it's one that I always kind of I didn't remember too much about, but it's not one I disliked, and when I reviewed that film, I did give it a kind of a positive score. I did say I found it to be quite a kind of a fun Bond that kind of, it had its comedy there, and it had it in a way that allowed the film to kind of go in wacky places, and kind of get away with it, in a sense. It didn't break the kind of silly, kind of outlandish, kind of wacky tone that it had, and I found it to be quite a pretty well made, campy piece of fun, and that's why I do consider it that. And actually, a little bit more than that. I think actually, yesterday, the weekend, of course, watching this film, and I think it's one that's just grown on me once again. I think it's just risen in my estimation, and I think it's nothing. I don't consider it a great Bond film. It's not one of the for me anyway, one of the best Bond films. But I really, I certainly can say I enjoy this film. I know that's very much in the minority. A lot of people, as I say, do not take to this at all. And of course, I can understand. If you like your kind of serious Bond films, especially me included in that. I think certain moments in this, there's no denying, we must say, certain moments, they're not, I don't think they're Bond like, and they're moments that, of course, could you really have seen, this is where the series would have gone after, of course, these real, kind of, they had their humour, they had their kind of campy moments, their kind of bizarre moments, perhaps, some of them, Thunderball, and Goldfinger was very, very much a kind of comedy film. It's very, it's got its silly moments, but it's hard to imagine that this is, you would see one day, for example, a Bond, kind of portrayal where Bond is in disguise as a clown, or in a gorilla costume. Just wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't think, but would you believe it? In this film it does, and for some, and I can understand, it just doesn't work. It shouldn't have happened. Some say, and I understand that for sure. And I think, at the moment, I think in the gorilla costume, I could have done without. And for example, the clown moment, it's definitely, not quite the true Bond kind of feeling in that sense with these moments. But overall, actually, I do think, despite the kind of the moments in this, there's many moments in this. It's got some of the most frequent kind of bizarre, kind of silly, outlandish moments within the whole franchise. On paper, this could be considered, maybe one of the top 3 most over the top, you could say, Bond films. Bizarre Bond films, but I think actually, I think The Man with the Golden Gun actually at times is probably more bizarre than this, because its tone is not quite, this is a very much established as a campy, over the top, kind of silly Bond, but I do enjoy this one quite a bit actually. I think it's rather good, it's good entertainment, I feel, and as I say, some of these moments, it's hard to kind of think, when you're watching certain Bond films, how it can also be this. Bond can be this. Bond in a clown costume, perhaps. Of course, eventually defusing the bomb at the end. It's very bizarre. It's very much kind of tongue in cheek. It's very much very, very different to, for example, the more serious Bonds. By Connery, of course, at times. Lazenby, etc. And Dalton, for example. But yes, as I say, this one really establishes a very particular tone, very early on, and it kind of works at times. Even these moments, for example, and I said this in my previous review, moments like the clown, costume, towards the end of the film, when he's defusing the bomb there, at the circus, of course, it's very silly. It's very, it does go too far at times, of course, and seeing Bond in this costume, it's hard to explain the feelings for that, but it's a Roger Moore Bond, and he can actually kind of pull this off, more than different Bonds. I think personally, I think he knew how to kind of. It's very hard to actually do this. I know it's Bond in a clown costume, and maybe some say it shouldn't have happened, but I think it's actually kind of commendable that this was pulled off in this way, and I think it does kind of work. In the sense it's a tense scene. It is actually a very involving scene, and it's kind of a humorous scene in the intention of it as well. And I think there's definitely films within franchises and stuff that I think get don't get the kind of criticism, the bashing perhaps by different critics, whereas Bond really seems to kind of there are many Bond films I think that really get kind of a complete negative kind of attitude towards, I think, criticisms for this kind of thing. And I think it kind of I don't say it's unfair, but it's kind of interesting. Let's just say that. And I think moments like this, I think just cinematically and actually in relation to the tone of this film, they do kind of work. They are entertaining, and I don't think they're kind of, I can't personally justify criticizing moments like this in the ways that maybe kind of. Yes, some would, perhaps, but yeah, I think, yes, it's silly, it's sometimes too far, it's not a perfect film, but I do think it's very, very consistent, actually, this one. I think, it's just a very nice kind of pleasant, entertaining and warm, kind of fuzzy film to watch, especially at the weekend. And as I say, Sundays are great for Bond. I watched this yesterday, which was Saturday, so a bit different for me, maybe out of my comfort zone, but still, it was great to see. And yes, I watched this in the day, so yeah, there's something about the way I watched it that I just found. I thought, yeah, this is great experience and a great way to watch the film. And I do consider this, actually a good film. I think it's more than average now. After this rewatch, I think there's a lot to really, get behind. Personally speaking, of course, I do understand. It's not for everyone, but I do personally I get really, really involved in the action. I love the kind of the score. Well, let's just say, of course, the theme. Tune, of course. The theme to the film, sung by Rita Coolidge, All Time High. This is a really, really good Bond theme for me. I love the theme. Most of the lyrics as well. In this, I think overall, lyrically and musically, it's very, very pleasing. I love this theme actually, and even more so when we get to the way it's kind of within the score. Of course, John Barry returning here, and wow. I love the way that this is used in the film. It's really, really lovely. It's used quite a lot actually. Kind of the same kind of part of the theme being used within the score quite frequently. I just think it's really lovely to kind of hear, and I do really, really, really like the score here. I love the score, and I think it's just quite a visually compelling film. It's really, really nice to look at here. Very pleasant. The visuals here, I love the kind of natural look it has, and it's just really, of course, mostly filmed here, India and in England, and I think, yeah, of course, the main location's been in India throughout most of the film, and really, really wonderful ways in which they kind of captured the beauty of India, and just great, great to look at this film, and I think real kind of charm to it because of that alone. And I think Roger Moore, is definitely highly enjoyable in this film. I think he's better than he was, in kind of, for example, The Man with the Golden Gun. I think once again this is a really, really, kind of enjoyable performance as Bond, and I think yes, a lot of comedy, of course, once again coming from Roger Moore, and what they do with the character, and yes, the main Bond girl, of course, Octopussy, which is of course the title of the film. Octopussy is played by Maud Adams, and very, very interesting because she was in The Man with the Golden Gun as kind of one of the characters there, and also kind of an extra in A View to a Kill. So three Bond films she appeared in as different characters. Very interesting, and she plays Octopussy in this film. Of course, the main Bond girl, and you can kind of consider another character which we'll get to as a Bond girl as well. But the main Bond girl in this film, is Octopussy, and Maud Adams is very good in this film. I think she's very enjoyable. Again, it's not something that people have criticised. I personally, like this, this character, and the whole kind of backstory to her, character, and of course being the leader of this group, of different characters, and I think, yeah, I do really like the way it kind of ends. I know some would kind of do not like the kind of ending, perhaps, and the way it kind of is portrayed in the film and stuff. Some don't find it enjoyable, perhaps, but I do kind of like this Bond girl, and it's not a great romance in this film. It's not a great relationship, but it is an enjoyable one, and I do like the kind of warm feeling it has in the film. And I think she's actually quite a well written character, and yes, of course, you have Kamal Khan, as the main villain, of this film, played by Jourdan, and he is quite enjoyable, I must say. I think, of course, Stephen Berkoff is in the film. Now, Stephen Berkoff, is an actor who has been in quite a few films. We'll call to mind, of course, 2 Stanley Kubrick films as well, Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon. So and he's always enjoyable. I always find enjoyment, of course, in the craze, as well, that kind of creation that he was in there. He is in this film, of course, General Orlov. He is highly enjoyable, and I think, it's just very fun to see Stephen Berkoff give a kind of, once again, another over-the-top, an enjoyable performance. I love his kind of outbursts in the film, the moments, of course, early on where he just kind of shouts, he raises his tone of his speech, and it's very bizarre, but it just adds for so much enjoyability. Moments like this, and I think Louis Jourdan is not as memorable, as Stephen Berkoff in the film, but I think again, a decent villain. I like the kind of the auction scene. Again, you can kind of see different moments here that are kind of maybe like different Hitchcock films, for example, North by Northwest. The auction scene there. I think it's definitely enjoyable. The way, of course, the villain and the hero kind of are involved in this scene, and I think this scene, the auction scene in this film, is very enjoyable. Of course, the main plot concerns this Fabergé egg, and basically, of course, you've got the fake egg as well, and you've got this kind of bidding sequence, and of course, it involves this smuggling operation that leads to, of course, our knowledge that there is a kind of plot to kind of detonate this nuclear device, at this US base, and it all kind of culminates, of course, in the final act, just after the kind of train sequence there, which is very enjoyable stuff. And I think that's the thing. This is consistently a very nice flow, to a Bond film. It's very much, I think, here and there there's some lulls, but I think mostly, if you're talking about Act 1, 2 and 3, if you want to kind of generalise that, there I think actually it's very consistent. Nothing great, really can, in the acts of the film, it's not a great act here and maybe lesser there. I think it's all, good / very good. I think it's all nothing masterful really, in terms of an actual act of the film, although there is some really stunning action in the film, some stunt work, and I think highly enjoyable sequences, but it is just simply to kind of sum it up, consistent in its nature, whatever that kind of is, in terms of how to describe that nature of the film. I think it's just consistent. It's got a wonderful flow, and I think just a very nice, enjoyable Bond film. And I think, yes, moments like the train, action sequence, towards the end of the film, it's very tense, quite layered in the way it kind of progresses, perhaps, and I think. All the different ways in which they're kind of outside of the train, on top of it, and inside, and all the different kind of interactions. It's one of them films where it really makes use of this kind of this train, and the ways in which it can kind of it creates the action here. Nothing. You can say it's kind of taken from other films, in certain moments, of course. But I think overall very enjoyable action, and as well, of course, we have that kind of. The car chase sequence, towards the middle of the film, the first half, this is when, this is insane, of course, but yes, it ticks another box here. It has the kind of Bond theme playing within the action piece, and of course, Vijay, is this kind of side character. The real life, individual is also called Vijay, and he was a professional tennis player, and of course. They use that in the film. Kind of one of the moments. There is him using a tennis racket as a weapon, and different moments. Within the crowd are kind of reacting as if they were in a tennis game. So bizarre film. But again, that's a humorous moment. I mean, that had me laughing once again. I think just bizarre, but so enjoyable. In these moments, I think really kind of a campy fun kind of feeling. I just love the kind of moment there, when Vijay, kind of the reactions he gives to Bond, really priceless, and I think this character Vijay is just always very jolly in the film, and it's very funny to see, and of course, unfortunately, he does die in the film, and kind of moment there, and I wanted Vijay to survive this film, but unfortunately not. But that leads to another moment or another aspect of the film, which is why I do like this quite a bit, and that is of course Q in the film. Desmond Llewelyn is once again back and ready to play, and yes, in this one he really does go out on the field quite a bit, and he has a real involvement in this film. Yes, just the camaraderie between Q, Vijay, and of course Bond. You know, it's just very enjoyable. You know, at times I really like the way, you know, Q and Vijay, you know, are kind of fishing, you know, into the night, and as of course a disguise. Yes, these moments with Q, and of course, you know, talking about Q here once again, you know, it's quite a standout, you know, in this film overall it seems. But yes, of course, the final act, you know, Q actually comes into the action scene there, so just very enjoyable and kind of funny to see. Again, if this was, you know, in a different Bond film, these kind of events, they might not work at all, you know, and that's the thing. But in this film in particular, there is a tone, as I say, and a way in which it's made, you know, direction here that I think just kind of, you know, allows itself to kind of get away with these moments, perhaps. And I think it's a breezy, light Bond, but it is a tense Bond. It's a one that I get, you know, quite involved in, and you know, I enjoy. And it's not just a film that's so light that I don't care about, you know, or get, you know, I'm not compelled by it. You know, it's not one of them films, and it's not a film that I think ever gets to a point where, you know, kind of, you know, as a Bond film or as an action film, kind of adventure comedy film, it's never a point where it stops and it, you know, it kind of becomes sluggish and kind of grinds to a halt. It's consistently moving, you know, in its pieces, and the narrative. Yes, it may be light and completely ludicrous at times, you know, what's going on here, but it never, for me, you know, as a viewer, you know, cinematically or elsewhere, you know, it becomes a point where it stops and it just kind of changes direction and you know, kind of varies in quality too much. So it's actually it's got a nice flow from start to finish. The opening is not, you know, one of the best, but you know, the opening scene is kind of funny as well, and of course leading, you know, we've not mentioned yet, the kind of into the title sequence. You know, we must mention the kind of course, the line by Roger Moore, fill her up please, and the smile, and we have it, you know, leading in with that freeze frame, hilarious moment that had me laughing again, and of course, yeah, leading into the title sequence. As I've said, Rita Coolidge, you know, I really do like this theme, and I think the title sequence, you know, talking on that, not one of the best, you know, but quite nice, and you know, it is a bizarre sequence. What's going on, the reactions, different individuals there and stuff, and different freeze frames. It's kind of a mashup of different Bond title sequences. It's quite bizarre, you know, but it is nice visually, you know, in terms of the colours and the kind of design and stuff and what's going on there. But again, it's kind of a, yeah, also of course elevated by the actual theme song, which is just wonderful at times. I think it's a beautiful little song, of course. And again, not everyone likes this theme, but I do kind of love this theme actually. And yeah, overall the title sequence, I do like. You know, it's just mainly elevated, of course, by the actual song. You know, because it's very strange, but you know, it's enjoyable nevertheless. But the leading in there, the link to the opening titles is the thing that really makes it, and it's just absolutely bizarre. But yeah, just great to see the smile there from Roger Moore, and then leading in there, it's just really hilarious. You know, I couldn't, you know, it's very hard, you know, to kind of, it throws you off, kind of thing there. That's a really bizarre, you know, and highly funny moment there. But yes, the action scenes throughout the film, as I've said, are very consistent. Of course, you've got fighter jets involved here, and of course, once again in the final act, you know, that kind of moment there. Roger Moore, of course, or the stunt double, you know, as you see very obviously there, and you know, hanging, of course, outside the plane, and of course you've got Gobinder as well. You know, kind of that character, the henchman there, kind of. Trying to take Bond down, and yeah, the fall from the plane there is very funny as well. But yeah, you know, it's a very very kind of campy Bond. So at times it is kind of too much. No doubt, it's definitely it goes too far. Moments in the film, I think it seems like most people do cite this as one of if not the most kind of silly Bond. Of course, it's got moments that many people kind of mention, littered throughout, that are kind of considered some of the most bizarre, insane moments. Of course, the Tarzan yell, again, that is one of the moments I find hilarious when watching. But wow, it really, it could be considered too far, and I guess I do consider it too far. Of course, it is a Bond film, and him, swinging through the trees, and doing the Tarzan yell. Yeah, of course, definitely. I find that to be, of course, while it is funny, it is also flawed, and it's very. It does, of course, dock some marks off there. Moments like this they are too far, even for the kind of tone of the film, which is uniquely established. But at the same time, I do find enjoyment. Even the flaws of this film, even the moments that are, I would say maybe quite definitely not great at all. There's something about most of the moments in the film that I do then find something from, kind of maybe leads into something, or that moment itself. It's funny. It's funny to see, just because of how far they went with this one. As for comedy, that isn't kind of necessarily breaking the tone. It kind of course, it doesn't kind of get away with it, fully, but it does, in some sense, kind of allow itself to kind of gloss these moments over, and because it's a silly film, through and through, and at the same time it's intentional, and it kind of works at times, but at the same time, it's a flawed film. That's why I think it is a good film. Nothing. I don't think something more than that, but it's an enjoyable film. I feel it's well shot as well. The editing is mostly quite impressive. The action is very sustained and layered, and surprisingly tense, even though it's very really, really, it goes really far. These moments, even in the action. For example, the kind of tennis, the car chase there, and I love the way the Bond theme is used though there, and it's quite epic, and the stunts. But again, very, very silly. In these moments, but it does. Again, it kind of allows itself to do this, and it's definitely kind of, yes, it's an outlandish Bond, of course, but it is one that is definitely entertaining, and I don't think it's a great film, but I do think it's a good Bond film, and yes, definitely not one of the, for me personally, it's not one of the worst Bond films, and yes, I think it's a solid, decent Bond, and I think it is quite enjoyable. I think there's moments that kind of aren't as entertaining. Maybe in the second half as well. At times, so things kind of there. But at the same time, in the second half, you've got some really, really entertaining and thrilling, just highly enjoyable moments of action and yes, character interactions. I think the middle of the film maybe. Is my favourite kind of parts overall, consistently. The middle of the film, and the final act, and the bits at the beginning sometimes aren't as good. But it's a film that surprises me every time. It kind of this I just kind of like it more and more. I think just the tone of it, I think, is the main thing that can kind of lead people. How you react to the tone of the film, and the way it kind of sets this tone up. Can be how you maybe react to the entire film, and I understand, of course, it's not for everyone, and of course, I love the more serious, mostly, or kind of dramatic Bonds, ones that maybe the very, very best for me are the ones that are emotional Bonds, but at the same time, I also on occasion like the more completely silly Bonds, and I think they can always work. I think every Bond most Bonds up until a point had a kind of a humour about them, and did have laughs throughout the film, however kind of frequent they were. None of the Bonds are completely serious in that sense. So yeah, it kind of just depends. Whatever works, I guess, and I think this film does work. It's not one of my favourite Bonds, but at the same time, it's not one of my least favourites, and I think it's it's kind of a shame to see the kind of real kind of bashing that this film had, by many. It's a film that, I think many, as I've said, many other films and franchises, especially, kind of are a lot worse than this, and I think, get let off perhaps, in that sense. But this one, it just is an enjoyable film in my opinion. It's got heart. It's got, some magical moments. I love the kind of score to the film. Again, the ending is very, quite cheap. In the way it's done, the different lines there. But I do like the ending. It's an ending that kind of, it kind of pleases me. It's very very light, of course, this film at times, and it's not one, I fully get wrapped up in. Really, really invested in. But at the same time, I am there, kind of along for the ride. It's an enjoyable film. It's very, very, very charming, and Roger Moore, once again, just gives a highly enjoyable performance. And Q, Desmond Llewelyn, he also kind of shifts the character slightly, just gently easing into this more silly and definitely more involving kind of portrayal here, in terms of the actual involvement in the plot. Kristina Wayborn as well, as Magda. She's a character who kind of gives a very performance that also works with the film, and I really liked Magda. I know she's not the main Bond girl of the film, but actually, I really enjoyed the moments with her and Bond actually in the middle of the film. Again, I really like the also the moment when she kind of goes out the room there, out the window, and she of course kind of slides down, and then of course gets away. And she, very interesting character. I feel there's characters like this that I do really take to, and get kind of, at least at surface level, enjoy it perhaps. But of course, yes, the film has flaws. It's nothing too great. It is too much at times. It's very, very silly, and as I say, it establishes a very, very unique and bold tone. Even though it's a live film, it's bold in places. Because of how willing they were to kind of go to this level of comedy. I feel actually, while being a Bond film, very, very bold. Say what you want about the kind of way in which Bond is dressed up and stuff, but it does work at times, actually. But at the same time, it is definitely very, very flawed. But again, it's an enjoyable film. It's a one that I can just sit back and kind of enjoy. Very charming, very warm film, and a good solid Bond in terms of the quality. Again, the plot it's quite compelling. It's nothing to stand out, and the characters, the villains, I don't think are great, or anything like that. So it's not one of the best Bond films. I don't think. It's just, it is kind of it's a fun, nice flowing, nice looking, and wonderfully scored action adventure film. It's a very it's a campy romp. That's what it is, and I think a well made one at that. So yeah, a good Bond. I think this is a Bond film that is kind of, it's in the middle. It's not a bad Bond film at all. Definitely not, definitely not a bad Bond film, I would personally say, and it's not one of my least favourites. There are many Bond films that I would take this over, actually. But again, not one of my kind of top 10 or anything like that Bond films. It's not one of the best Bonds. So it's kind of just, it's an enjoyable film. It's a good film, and it kind of mixes these kind of spy moments. It's quite involving in that sense. It's got really good moments of tension, surprisingly, because it's very silly, campy, really, really comedic Bond. Really focuses on the kind of silly nature and these moments, of course, the costumes and moments like this. But it is tense at the same time. That can sum up the kind of moment when, of course, Bond is in the circus, as a clown, and then, of course, defusing this bomb just at the right moment. For a film to kind of do this, to be James Bond, just think Connery and Dr. No, from Russia with Love, and then you've got this Bond as a clown, defusing a bomb though, and then you kind of think, actually that's quite impressive, commendable that they actually made that work in some regards. It's just in my opinion, of course. Some don't like this film at all, but that's fine. This is just my discussion on the film. I personally do like this one quite a bit, and it's going to be definitely higher on my ranking. I can say that this time round when I do. Of course, for those of you who don't know, I know that a lot of you viewers are kind of stumbling upon my channel through the kind of James Bond ranking that I done a while back now, but of course I have noted, I think in that video as well and stuff, but I will be doing another ranking, eventually when No Time to Die is released, and of course including that, but yeah, some adjustments, and this one will be moving up, I can say that, and so is a few of the Bonds, Moonraker as well, actually. So yeah, all of these Roger Moore Bonds I enjoy up to this point, and yeah, we'll get to A View to a Kill. And this film here, I think it's a good Bond film. It's not great. It has its flaws. It has its moments that are slight lulls. It's got its moments that are just too much, very much so, and it's nothing. That I think it's great Bond villains or great Bond girls or. Something that I really get invested in, but it's one that I do enjoy. Very light, perhaps too light for some, and I can understand that. But yeah, I do enjoy this one. It's got some really tense moments, despite the really campy nature and really over the top kind of moments as well. But the action scenes, the way it's shot and edited, and yeah, just the overall charming film that it is. I think it's definitely very commendable at times, and overall, yes, a good, fun, charming, pleasant Bond film. So yes, overall a good Bond film, and as I've said, it's not more than that. It does have, for example, it doesn't have too much depth of the characters. It's not a film that kind of blows me away or anything. It's not one of them Bond films, and it hasn't got this. Perhaps it's this atmosphere that I love, about some of my favourite Bonds, and even a film like Thunderball, perhaps, it's not a film like that, but it's not meant to be. It's of course a very light Bond film, and one that's, it's just a fun kind of nice flow. It's very pleasing in its visuals, the locations, of course, and at the same time as being, this kind of comedic Bond, it's all out with the comedy here. If you don't like the more silly Bonds, it is very. As I say, how you kind of respond to most of the film really depends on how you perhaps get behind initially this kind of tone and the way they're kind of playing this film out. It's not kind of a film like From Russia with Love or anything like that. It's not that kind of film. It's very much which is very interesting because For Your Eyes Only again are returning to more serious Bond, perhaps, Bond films, realistic, gritty Bonds, and this one is the complete opposite. So it's very funny to see, and then, of course, a few Bond films down the line, we had License to Kill, very kind of inconsistent in what they're kind of going for. But this one, in itself, it's a very nice film. It's nice to see Roger Moore again, giving a very enjoyable performance. He really sells the comedic moments, and it's just some of the moments, just him in the costumes and stuff. While it does add for something, that's enjoyable, I don't think it's necessarily perfected at all there. But yeah, as I say, it's a good film, and the score I give this film is perhaps higher than most would expect, and that's just my opinion on the film. What I give the film is just my opinion, and you can, of course, everyone can do their own reviews, analysis videos, etc. About different films. Of course, that's what YouTube is for. Everyone can have their own opinions, and yes, I do think this is a good film. I just think that, and yeah, I think definitely not one of the worst Bonds. And yes, my final rating for this review for this film, of course, is a 72%. So yeah, it just kind of I was thinking maybe giving it 71, but I really did have some real. I had some fun with this one for sure, and just a charming film. It's not got too much depth. It's not a film that kind of is perfect in its kind of balance, or really it doesn't have too much drama. I was going to say balance of drama and comedy, but in that sense it is one of the Bond films, the few Bond films actually that's mostly a full-on comedy actually, an action comedy. So yeah, in that sense, it's a one not everyone likes, and that is fine. As I say, I can understand some just won't get behind this one. Maybe too silly for some. And as I say, I do love the more dramatic Bonds. My favourites, my absolute favourites are the ones that are really emotional ones and that kind of thing there. And of course, the more serious Bonds. Again, as I've said, pretty much every Bond has comedy there. There's maybe one Bond film or two that don't have any comedy really present. We'll get to them, but yeah, especially one in particular. But yes, this one it does approach the film the kind of franchise in a more comedic way. It's very interesting. Again, going for your eyes only. This film, complete opposites. At times, in the kind of tone here, it's very interesting. But yeah. This film, I like this one quite a bit. I think it's rather good. I think it's very, very, very light, but entertaining nevertheless. And some really good stunts. Some great visual moments actually at times. And yes, the score by John Barry and of course Rita Coolidge, singing of course the theme and the opening titles. It's all very pleasing at times. The score especially, it's just. I love the score. That's probably one of the best things about the film. But yeah, Roger Moore once again, really, really enjoyable, and I really like, as I say, the interactions. Magda as well. I liked her as a character, and of course, yeah, Octopussy, as a character, and the way it culminates this film with its plot, this kind of interesting plot. Again, another kind of nuclear threat, kind of kind of scenario, if you will, like many of the Bond films. But this one, I really like how it kind of has these, quite colourful characters. For example, Stephen Berkoff, as General Orloff. He is, really, really over the top, and there's something about it that's very innocent and just entertaining, charming in its kind of in its tone and the approach. And yeah, there's enough there to kind of really get invested in, the action department. And there's a lot of varied action sequences, quite creative and sustained and tense, and of course comedic. So yeah, a decent Bond. It's a good Bond film. It has many flaws, of course, and I could talk about this film, for longer. We'll leave it there though. I think I recommend this one if you're kind of if you've not seen this film, or if you've not seen it in a while, you want to rewatch this one. Yeah, definitely, I would recommend this film. It's a enjoyable film. Again, for me, I can't speak, of course, for everyone. It's a Bond film that's very, very reliant, on if you can get behind on this occasion the kind of tone of the film, and get behind that and the way they kind of approach this film. But I did for sure, consistently, mostly get something from this film. Again, it's more of just a nice, pleasant, enjoyable, funny Bond than a great mind-blowing Bond, or anything like that. But it's nothing, kind of less than impressive really, with the kind of direction, the way the film's shot, and the score, for example, is really, really lovely. I think the Bond theme is kind of it's maybe not in my top 10 Bond themes, but not far off of that, at least. I think it's very, very enjoyable. I love the kind of the score, but yeah, the Bond theme is very, very nice, actually, and yeah, I think it ends quite nicely as well. A really nice image there, with the sunset, and yeah, it all kind of adds to a pleasant, really bizarre, really, really bizarre and outlandish Bond, but one that I do enjoy quite a bit. And yeah, 72% here, of course. Some would say that's probably a very, very high score for this film, but that's everyone's opinions, being different, and not everyone's going to agree on Bond films. But yes, I personally like this film. That's just my opinion, and yeah, I do enjoy it, and I look forward to watching it again, and I'll certainly be watching this whenever I kind of want to watch a Bond that's very light and just kind of pleasant viewing and charming, campy fun. So yeah, Octopussy, a well-made campy adventure film that's very, very bizarre and definitely flawed, but it's fine. It's fine to kind of have the flaws here, because it's just enjoyable. It's got a very nice flow. There are films that really stop, get stopped in their tracks by comedic moments, but this film doesn't, and yeah, just an enjoyable Bond overall. And yes, of course, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on this film. And yes, let's continue with this part of the set. Again, it's always funny to kind of hold this up, very, very bland. Unfortunately, it's not much to kind of go by here to kind of show you, but yeah, you've just basically got the titles as well, of the films there. But yeah, next up, of course, is A View to a Kill. Of course, very, very famous Bond film. Very divisive Bond once again. And as I say, I do enjoy all of these, 6 Roger Moore films. These Bond films, of course. And as I've been going through these ones, of course, and yes, I've been having a very, very enjoyable time. Of course, I love The Spy Who Loved Me and For Your Eyes Only in particular. But I do, of course, I enjoy these first 6 of the 7 Roger Moore Bonds. And yes, next up in that sense is A View to a Kill. Everyone has their own opinions, and I think A View to a Kill is one that I want to kind of of course give a talking on, and we'll see what I think of that one, and again see what you think of A View to a Kill. But yes, tell me your thoughts please on Octopussy, and just anything Bond. As always, really, really great to kind of talk about, and yes, very comforting. This franchise to me, and this is definitely a comforting film, full of charm and wit, and Stephen Berkoff stand out here, and of course Roger Moore, being as always very, very charming here. Highly pleasant viewing here. Light film, very, very campy, over the top. Of course, it's not a perfect film, as in my opinion. As I've said, I'm not saying that, but it's a film that I do enjoy, and it's a well made, an enjoyable action adventure comedy film, and some real standouts as well. Different Bond theme moments as well, and within the action. So all these characters mentioned, Vijay, and the heavier involvement of Q in the film in terms of the screen time, and the actual involvement in the action department here. So really unique, and quite enjoyable, this film for me, and not a great Bond, but it's a good Bond. And tell me your thoughts on this film. It'd be very, very interesting to see what you think, and get different opinions on this film. And as I say, the penultimate Bond, Roger Moore, only one left, and it feels like we've been going through these for a while, just these Roger Moore ones, of course, and I had a couple of breaks, so it's always sad to kind of leave a different kind of bracket or kind of era of Bond, and then going on to the next one, because they all have the kind of unique feeling. As I've said, I love all the Bond actors. I'm not going to lie, I love every single of the 6 Bond, official Bond, of course, portrayals. And I can kind of take something from them, but I love all these Bond actors. So it's always sad to kind of go on to the next one, but at the same time, I do love them all. So I get excited to see this Bond as well. So yes, only one left, as I say, the Roger Moores, and then of course Timothy Dalton, of course, with The Living Daylights. But next up is A View to a Kill, so we look forward to talking about that one, and giving, of course, a kind of a decent length of a discussion on the film. So whatever you think of the film, let's talk about it, and let's talk about Octopussy on this occasion. And a very enjoyable kind of part of my weekend was watching this film. So very charming, and it's Octopussy again. So yes, tell me your thoughts, and take care, of course. And yes, as always, thanks for watching.